Hey guys, it's Tahira, and today I'm starting a new, I'm not even in frame, a new reading vlog where I am reading the oldest books on my TBR, aka the books that I have been on my TBR for the longest amount of time. I have a few books that have been on my TBR for like years and years and years. Literally some of them, one of these books has been on my TBR since I moved to California, which was 8 years ago. And I still haven't read it, and it was on my books to read in 2024, so I decided this would be a good way to try to read some of the books that have been on there the longest to try to get through them. So I have a potential 4-book TBR for this video. The first book I have that I don't know if I'm going to read first, but the first book I'm going to be talking about is Night Film by Marisha Pessl. This one is a like multimedia thriller book, and it's like, I don't know exactly what it's about. Like, I used to remember, but now I forgot. But it's like multimedia, and I think it has something to do with a mystery or something. And I've heard a lot about this, but since this is almost like 600 pages, I think, I've just been really intimidated by it. But this time I'm definitely gonna like officially pick it up and get through it once and for all. The next book is a book that I actually soft DNF, and that is The Walled City by Ryan Groudon. I picked this up because I really loved the Wolf by Wolf book that she wrote many years ago, and so I like went to a bookstore and I thought I would like this, and I picked it up, but then I don't know, just I couldn't really get into it after a few pages, so I like soft DNF'd it, and then like now it's been like 8 years and I still haven't picked it up. So I'm finally deciding that this is the time I'm going to read this book. And then the last books that I am potentially gonna be reading is Flame in the Mist and Smoke in the Sun. Smoke in the Sun is the book that has been on my TBR for a while, but Flame in the Mist is the first book, and I think I want to read this before I read this one just to refresh my memory and finally finish this duology once and for all. So yeah, these are the books that I am planning on reading in this video. I'm trying to go quickly because I have to go somewhere soon, but yeah, I'm probably most anticipating this one because I've heard a lot of things about it. There are some mixed reviews, but overall I've heard good things. It is a little bit long, but I am intrigued by this one and the plot, especially since it is a mystery. This one I'm probably the most like apprehensive about because I did soft DNF this before, so hopefully I can get into this. The plot does sound like pretty intriguing for this one as well, so I think I'll like be able to read this one now, especially since it's been so long. And this duology is one that I have sort of like, my interest has like waned over the years for this, where it's like gone a little bit down, but I'm still like want to finish this duology, especially because I haven't read the second book. So hopefully I'll be able to enjoy this one as well. And it is YA, so like the text is pretty big as well, so I think I'll be able to get through these pretty quickly. But yeah, this is my TBR for these next few days. These are the books I'll be reading, and I'll take you guys along with me as I am reading the books. It is several days later, and this book took me a lot longer to finish than I thought it would, but I have officially finished The Walled City by Ryan Groudon. It took me about 5 days to read this. I thought it would take me only like 3, to be honest, because the text is pretty big, but it is kind of long. It's like 420 pages. And I ended up giving this like 3.75 to 4 stars. I actually really enjoyed this. So this book takes place and follows 3 characters, Jin, Mei Yi, and Dai. I think that's how you say their names. I'm not too sure. But it takes place in this like area called the Walled City, which is like sort of a fictionalized representation of an actual walled city that existed in Hong Kong, I think, called, I forgot what it's called, but it's definitely based on a real life like place. And it follows the story of Jin as she's trying to find her sister who's within the walled city, and she cuts off her hair and tries to pass as a boy because all the girls in there are basically put into brothels to work. And so she's trying to find her sister, and then she meets Dai along the way, and he has his own like mission and everything, and they kind of come together to try to save her sister, and also like sort of fix whatever's been going on in the walled city, try to take it back. The government's like trying to take it back, turn it back into like a normal place. But yeah, that's what the story is about. I actually really enjoyed this. I have read one other book by Ryan Groudon, which is Wolf by Wolf, which I read like, I want to say it's probably like 9 years ago at this point. I read it probably in like middle school, high school, and I had picked this up because I had loved Wolf by Wolf so much. I never got to the sequel, but this is the very first book I actually bought when I was in California. I had moved here just from Seattle about 8 years ago, and I guess it's been like 8 years, but we went to a bookstore in San Francisco, and this is the book I ended up getting because I'd heard of the author and then I just never read it. But officially I read it now. I really enjoyed this. I think that one of my favorite parts about this was the writing. I think the writing was really great, and there was a lot of like moments where it was like not poetic but just like a little bit flowery writing, but not too much, so I really enjoyed that. Another thing that I ended up like kind of contributed to me not giving this like a full like 5 stars or whatever is because the pacing was a little bit slow at first. Since this is a pretty long book, it took a little bit to get into. The second half of the book was definitely a lot more action packed, but the first one took a little bit to get into. And then the other thing is that there's 3 perspectives in here. We have Jin, and then Mei Yi, who is her sister, and then Dai, and we're following all 3 perspectives, so it's switching back and forth. But Dai and Jin were kind of together for most of it, so their like perspectives were kind of too similar to me. Mei Yi's story I really enjoyed. She is Jin's sister, and she is in one of the brothels, and she has to work and stuff. So yeah, like Jin and Dai's story became a little bit too similar to me because they were together for a lot of the book, but Mei Yi's I really enjoyed. So as far as like pacing and stuff, I think a little bit of it could have been cut from the beginning part to speed things along a little bit. I will say that Ryan Groudon did a really great job at writing tension, especially in like the latter half of the book. I was like almost like at the edge of my seat reading some scenes. So I think usually like I haven't been able to find that in a lot of books, so I think I will definitely give her praise for that because the tension was really great. And one last thing, there was like a sort of thing that happened in the end of the book that sort of got resolved, and I think it would have been better if the author had left it the way it had been. I don't really want to spoil anything, so I can't really say too much, but if you read the book, I feel like you know what I'm talking about. I feel like this is an underrated book. I haven't really seen a lot of people talk about this, but if you read this book, you know what I'm talking about. There's something that happens that I feel like would have been better if it had just been left. It would have added to the sort of dark, gritty atmosphere of the story. And I think this is YA, but I will say it's definitely upper YA because there's a lot of like dark conversations, themes happening in this book, and just a lot of situations that are pretty dark. So definitely if you're like in the YA range, I would definitely look out for that if you're reading this book. But overall, I really enjoyed this, and I'm so glad that I did because, again, I have been sort of in a slump with books that I'm not enjoying as much. So I'm really glad that I enjoyed this. I don't know why it took me so long to read this. This is just one of those books that has been on my shelf, but I never really was in the mood to pick it up. But now that I didn't force myself to pick it up, but like now that I had the chance to like pick it up, I'm like really glad that I did. And maybe this is a sign that I shouldn't leave books on my TBR for like 8 years and have never read them. But yeah, I will put this back. You're like propped up on my tripod right now, so I can't show you, but I'm putting this back on my shelf. I don't know what I want to read next because either I might want to start a fantasy romance book, because I think I'm going to do a fantasy romance reading vlog too, or I could read the second book for this video, which is Night Film. The only thing is that one is pretty long, and I don't know if I feel like I'm in the right mind. Like, I definitely want to read that book for this video, but I just don't know if I want to read it like right now. So I might switch over to read another book for that other video, and then I will come back and read Night Film or maybe Flame in the Mist, depending on what I'm in the mood for. But yeah, so far I will say that this is like going well-ish so far. 3.75 to 4, like that is not a bad rating at all. It's definitely higher than what I've been rating books like recently, so I will take that as a success. I just fell into my mid-year book freak out tag video, but I decided to do an update as well For Night Film by Marisha Pessel. I started this like a couple of days ago, but I'm only like 58 pages in, so barely like 10% of the way through. And I'm not sure how I'm feeling about this book for several reasons, because it is like pretty long, and I know it's a mystery thriller, but for a mystery thriller being almost like 600 pages is sort of insane to me. Like, I've seen reviews online that are also say like that the book does not need to be that long and it could be cut shorter. So I think the length is intimidating me a little bit, as well as the fact that the writing isn't like catching me. I don't know, like the writing is good and like it's not bad writing by any means, but it's just not like, I'm not reading it as quickly as I'm wanting to, and it's taking me a little bit to read it, which I know like there's nothing wrong with a book that needs a little bit more time, but I think just for my attention right now it's not serving me, although it could pick up since I am only like 60 pages in. And for me to have only read 60 pages in the past 2 days just does not bode well for me, because a lot of the pages, since this is a multimedia book, a lot of the pages are like this, where it's like a magazine or like a newspaper article, or you have like cell phone like transcripts, which are way easier to read than like normal text, or you just have like different paperwork that's being shown, like they had like a form for like when they found, or like when just like forms and stuff. So like the book isn't fully like all just text on page, so it should be taking me like faster to read because of that, but it's just not. And also the main character being a man, it's in like, this man is written by a woman, because I assume Marisha Pessel is a woman, I think, and it's giving man written by a man. So that one, I don't know, I just can't really get into his head. I think also because Scott McGrath was the main character, I think he's a middle-aged man, or at least a man that's older than me, and I just can't really get into his headspace as much as obviously as if it was a woman. So I think it's just a combination of things. But yeah, pretty quick update, but just sort of wanted to talk about like how I'm feeling with this book. I think I'll stick through it for at least 100 pages or a little bit more, just to see if I can get into it. If not, I'll try to, I hate DNFing books, especially because I've had this for so long on my shelf, but I will try to push through as much as I can. And if I'm really hating it, or if I'm just not engaged by it, I might just have like keep it as a soft DNF and pick it up later. I don't know, maybe it's because it's summer and I'm not really in the mood for like a dark or like dense, gritty 600-page mystery. I think it's because I'm in the mood for like fantasy romance and also like general romance. So we'll see. I'll keep you updated. This book took me like 2 weeks to finish, but I have officially finished Night Film by Marisha Pessel. I finished it last night, and I will say this was a very interesting reading experience for me. First of all, this book is 600 pages long, but it felt like it was 1,000 pages long. It felt so long, and I felt like I was reading, like it just felt like I was reading this book forever and that it would never end. And I don't know, like I ended up giving this book 3.5 stars, so not like a terrible rating, even though this book is mixed with a lot of like mixed media. So there's like, as I showed before, articles and website clippings and things like that. It still like took me a while to get through, which was surprising because I thought I'd go through it faster since I had all these like mixed media elements in it. And the mixed media elements, I will say, they were like very interesting. I've never really read anything that has a ton of that sort of element in a book, so it was really interesting to read a story with that. And I really enjoyed it. I think it added a whole lot of depth to the story and made it a lot more real than what usually books are like. Like most of the characters felt very real to me because of how much time it felt like I was spending with them, and especially the director that they are sort of trying to get closer to, Cordova. He's like this mysterious dark director figure in this book, and he felt so real. We were diving so much into his psyche, his work, his like life philosophy, and at the end of the book it truly felt like it was a real person that could exist in our own world. So I will give, like, the way that Marisha Pessl put the story together with all the mixed media elements and crafted the story, I will say is amazing. Like, I will have to give her props for like the way she did that. But there were a few issues I had with it. One of them was that like throughout the story they were like obviously trying to solve like a mystery, and they were like talking to multiple people, and it just felt like they were getting information way too easily. Anytime they would go and talk to someone, basically the person was easy, they were willing to talk, and they were just able to basically spill everything that the main characters needed in order to continue on with the mystery. And this was especially unbelievable because there's this one woman that they talked to who is supposed to be really weak and frail and basically like a drug addict who can barely like live anymore, and she's like basically half dead. But of course the time they go talk to her, she's unusually lucid. So I was like, this is just not realistic. And it just felt like they were just getting everything too easily. Another thing was that the main character, I did not love his like point of view and perspective. The main character, Scott McGrath, he is like a middle-aged man, and his like, I don't know, the way he talks about other people, especially people of color, which is kind of icky at times. Like anytime there would be someone who's not like white or thin or born in the US, I guess, he would always be kind of like shitting on them a little bit. He would be sort of falling into stereotypes, like for example assuming people can't speak English, and he would always be like, the way that fat people were described in this book was also really weird. I don't know, it just felt like the author had like a weird fixation on fat people and then people of color, and just kind of fell into very traditional and like negatively connotated stereotypes of them. So that was one thing I definitely noticed while I was reading them, and it kind of took me out of the story a little bit when he would make like little side comments and remarks that were entirely unnecessary for the plot. And the last thing I will talk about with this book is that the ending of this book was so flat compared to the rest of the story. The rest of the story was honestly so cool. Like, although it felt very long, at some points I was like on the edge of my seat wanting to figure out what was going to happen next, especially as they were getting closer and closer to the end of like solving everything. And like that whole journey was so interesting. But the way that the ending happened, I was like honestly so confused about what was going on, and the way that it ended up like completely ending, I actually didn't mind, but it just felt like it wasn't up to par with how the rest of the book was. So that's one thing that also brought down my rating for it. But honestly, I didn't know how to rate this one because it was so, like, I feel like I really truly went on a dark journey when I read this book, and since it took me so long, usually books like that, like, I can usually tell that I don't like them, but this one was one that took me a while, but I didn't hate that. I was fully immersed into the world and the story, and although sometimes it got a little bit boring and a little bit like the story was sort of dragging, most of the times I was pretty much interested. And yeah, overall it was, I don't know, it was just a very interesting story, and I feel like this story is something I will probably keep thinking about, and I feel like this book is something I can keep like rereading in the future. Like, not pretty soon obviously, but like maybe in like 20 years I'll pick this book up, and once I've forgotten most of it, I feel like I'll have a really fun time rereading it. So yeah, very interesting book, very interesting opinions. It's unlike anything I've ever read before, so like 3.5 stars is where I'm landing for right now. On Goodreads I rounded it up to 4, but yeah, I've never read anything like this, and I probably wouldn't have picked it up for a long time unless it was for this video. So I guess it's going well so far. I've liked everything that I've read decently enough, so we'll see with the next book if that ends up turning out the same way for that. So I am actually going to be closing the vlog out here. Originally my plan was to read the Walt Disney Night film and then start slash like finish the Flame in the Mist duology, but I just cannot bring myself to like reread the first book and to read the second book, and honestly I don't have an interest in reading that duology right now, even though I know it was in my TBR for this video. But I think 2 books, usually I like to keep themed videos to like 3 books at least, just to have a little bit more content than just 2 books. But this time I'm just gonna end up reading 2 books because that's what I want. I am reading, I feel like there's just more like other books that I want to read right now, that the Flame in the Mist duology is not catching my attention at all, and there's nothing in me that wants to read it, and I don't want to force myself to read it just for like a video. So I will be just closing the vlog out right here, but it has been several days since the last update. But I think this vlog was overall actually a success because both The Walled City and Night Film I ended up giving like 4-ish stars, and I thoroughly enjoyed both of them. They were all books that I had been putting off for like years and years, but I have finally decided to read them, and I am really glad that I did, because I don't think if it wasn't for this video I probably wouldn't have picked up either of them for many more years probably. So I'm really glad that I read them. But yeah, let me know down below if you read any of these books, as of course I would love to know. The Walled City is one that I haven't really seen a lot, so that is definitely like an underrated pick. I would definitely recommend it though. But yeah, that is it for this video. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Bye.